one thing that I found useful is cherishing the time you spent with people like your parents. There was an article I read called The Tail End, and I forget who wrote it. I'll link it down in the show notes. But he basically he laid out all of these graphics and said, like, this is how many pizzas I've had, for example, and this is how many I'm roughly going to have for the rest of my life if I have one every 3 months or something like that. And then it got very deep when it showed this is all the time I've spent with my parents so far, and this is all the time I've got left. And it's when, before you've moved out of your parents' house, you've probably spent about 90% of the time you're ever going to spend with your parents in your life. Yeah. Because the rest of your time, you're going to move out, you're not going to see them nearly as much, but you're seeing them every day. Yeah. And I think for teenagers, that's maybe one thing that they could look back on and cherish. And they will.
You're right. I think you're right. And obviously there's some people out there, unfortunately, don't get that chance. They either lose parents young or whatever. And it's funny you mention it because actually, literally just 2 or 3 days ago was the 10th anniversary of my dad dying. And it's funny because actually this was something that literally came up in conversation the other day about how grateful, albeit like he was quite young, when he died, but how grateful I was to have that time with my parents. And I got to the age of 18 and I'd moved out and I moved to Aberdeen. It was 4 hours away from my hometown of Troon, and I rarely saw my parents again after that. I visited them every now and then, and so you're absolutely right. I think it's a great point, and I think as irritating as parents can be, and as frustrating and as stressful and as anxiety fueled as lockdowns were for a lot of people, I think it's a really valid point. Look back on it, and we'll use the word cherish. Absolutely cherish that time, because you might. Well, actually, the reality is you probably won't have it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's forced. I think the whole COVID thing has forced me to rethink everything along those lines. The time with my family, like my son went into the first lockdown a primary school child and came out of lockdown a secondary school young teenager. Like, it's mad. And I realised that I had very rarely, if ever, walked him to school, been to a sports day, missed most parents' nights. And at the time it was like, yeah, but I'm busy. I'm on the road. That's what I do. It's my job. I don't know how to do anything else. But all of a sudden the world just went, there's a slowdown for you, mate. There was fears around the business and employees, and it was awful, don't get me wrong, but the world delivered us a slowdown. And I took it. I grabbed on with two hands, and it shook people to their core. It shook my business to its core, and we had to rethink everything. But honestly, dude, I'm so grateful for it. Not the COVID part, obviously that sucks, and I would like that to go away fully. It's not going to, obviously, but I'm very grateful for it. So yeah, looking back on not just the time with loved ones, but the time to think, the time to write, the time to make moments of silence. We don't have them anymore. To be able to sit for 20 minutes on an armchair in silence, people can't do that anymore. We're on edge all the time. The news of late has put people on edge even more, understandably. So I think one of the phrases I used in another book of mine called Zest was this idea of creating a mental green belt for yourself. And I love that concept. And I think that's what the last 2 years have brought me. A reminder to create a mental green belt, a space in my own head for downtime, to just be, for silence, to think, and not allow that constant build-up of communication, whether it's from my phone, whether it's the TV, whether it's billboards, sides of buses. Like, the whole world now is just, there's information, take more information into your eyeballs. So yeah, I'm going with as many of the positives as I can.
Yeah,